Millionaire takes his son to the park for a regular day of fun. Suddenly, he sees a poor boy who is the exact copy of his son. The disturbing scene makes the businessman's heart race as his son whispers with wide eyes, "Daddy, he's my dead brother." In that instant, the reality around him falls apart, and a long-buried secret begins to come to light. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Tell us which city you're watching us from, and we'll keep going. Alex. Godot watched the city through the enormous windows of his office on the 45th floor. The technological empire he had built extended far beyond that skyline of skyscrapers, but not all his success could fill the void he had been carrying for the past 10 years. His eyes lingered for a moment on a small photograph on the table. Isabel, his wife, with her serene smile and eyes that seemed to hold all the secrets of the world. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Sophia, his secretary. "Mr. Godot, the meeting with the Chinese investors is scheduled for 3. And, well, Eric called 3 times this morning." Alex closed his eyes, feeling the weight of guilt. He had promised his son that he would take him to the park this weekend, but the last few weeks had been a whirlwind of appointments and meetings. "Please transfer his next call to me," he replied, adjusting his Italian tie in the reflection of the window. In his mansion, Eric, a 10-year-old boy with expressive eyes identical to his mother's, played alone in the garden under the watchful eye of Emma, the housekeeper who had practically raised him. She watched the boy with a mixture of love and concern, recognizing in him the same loneliness that she saw in Alex's eyes. "Young Master Eric," Emma called, her Portuguese mixed with the English she insisted on using. "It's time for lunch." Eric came in with his head down, his feet shuffling across the marble floor. "Daddy promised today would be different," he muttered, sitting down at the giant table where he usually ate lunch alone. Emma felt her heart sink. She had been working for the Godots for 10 years, ever since that night in the hospital. She quickly pushed away the memory that was trying to surface. Some memories were best kept in the dark. "Your father works hard, dear. He does it for you," she tried to console him, serving him his favorite soup. The phone rang and Eric's eyes lit up when he heard his father's voice. "Son, I'm sorry I'm late." Alex's voice sounded tired but genuinely regretful. "How about we go to the new park downtown, the one you saw on TV?" "Really, Dad, you promise?" "I promise. I'll be home in an hour." Emma watched the instant transformation in the boy's face. It was amazing how much he looked like Isabel when he smiled. The same sparkle in his eyes, the same dimple on his left side. For a moment, an old uneasiness troubled her. That night in the hospital, the whispers, the second baby. Alex kept his promise. An hour later, his black Porsche drove up to the mansion's gates. Eric ran into his arms, and for a moment, the powerful businessman allowed himself to simply be a father. On the way to the park, Eric talked non-stop about his video games and the stories he was reading. Alex realized, with a pang of guilt, how much he had missed of his son's growth. "Dad, did you know I dreamed about Mom yesterday?" Eric suddenly commented. Alex felt his heart skip a beat. "Really? And how was it?" "She was in a beautiful place with a kiosk near a stream. She smiled and said she had a special gift for me." Alex gripped the steering wheel tightly. This was Isabel's favorite place, where they used to spend Sundays before everything changed. The park was packed that Sunday afternoon. Children were running around everywhere, filling the air with their laughter. Eric quickly joined a group playing on the swings, while Alex sat on a nearby bench, quietly answering a few emails on his cell phone. It was then that something caught his attention. A boy, dressed in simple, shabby clothes, was watching Eric from afar. There was something strange about the way he looked, a mixture of fascination and recognition that made Alex sit up straighter in his seat. The boy began to slowly approach Eric, as if he was drawn by an invisible magnet. Alex felt an inexplicable shiver run down his spine when the two stood face to face. It was like looking into a mirror. Even from a distance, it was impossible not to notice the striking resemblance between the boys. The same eyes, the same shape of their faces, even the way they tilted their heads slightly to the side in curiosity. "Who are you?" Alex heard Eric ask, his voice shaking slightly. The other boy hesitated, running his hand nervously over his faded t-shirt. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm Luca, I think I'm your brother." Alex stood up abruptly, his phone falling to the floor without him noticing. A wave of memories began to flood his mind. Fragments of that night in the hospital, raised voices, documents thrust upon him for his signature as he lay stunned by the news about Isabel. When he got closer to the boys, he noticed something that made his blood run cold, a small crescent-shaped birthmark on Luca's neck, identical to the one Eric had. How did you know about Eric?" Alex managed to ask, his voice hoarse. "I've always dreamed of it," Luca replied simply, "of this park too, and of a woman with sad eyes who sang to me." Alex staggered slightly. Isabel's last words before she was sedated that night echoed in his mind. "Take care of our treasures, Alex. Promise me you'll protect them." Treasures, in the plural. The truth he had buried for 10 years began to emerge, and nothing in his life would be the same after that moment. The drive back to the Godot mansion was shrouded in dense silence, broken only by the occasional whisper between Eric and Luca in the back seat of the Porsche. Alex watched in the rearview mirror as the two children seemed to gravitate toward each other, like long separated planets returning to their natural orbit. Luca stared out the window with wide eyes as they walked through the gates of the estate. His expression a mix of awe and familiarity. "I've seen this house before," he murmured, pressing his face against the glass. "In my dreams, there was a red swing by that big tree." Alex braked sharply. The red swing had been removed 8 years ago, right after Eric's 3rd birthday. How could Luca have known? Emma was waiting at the front door, as she always did. When she saw Alex get out of the car, accompanied not only by Eric, but also by another identical boy, she dropped the tea tray she was holding. The crash of the cups breaking echoed through the entrance hall. "Holy Mother of God," the housekeeper whispered in Portuguese, her face draining of all color. "It can't be." "Emma." Alex's voice came out firmer than he actually felt. "We need to talk now." In the office, while the children were distracted in the playroom by one of the maids, Emma sat stiffly in one of the leather armchairs, her hands shaking slightly in her lap. "How long did you know?" Alex asked, pouring himself a generous shot. "Of whiskey." "Mr. Alex, The truth, Emma, after all these years, I think we deserve this." The housekeeper closed her eyes as if gathering courage. When she opened them again, they seemed burdened with an old guilt. "I was a nurse that night," she began, her voice low but firm. "I was on shift when Doña Isabel went into labor. Everything seemed normal at first, but then she paused, taking a deep breath. Dr. Frisk came in a hurry. He ordered Isabel sedated immediately, something about complications. But she was fine, senor. I checked her vitals every 15 minutes. Alex sat down heavily in his chair, memories of that night beginning to rearrange themselves in his mind. "There was a commotion," Emma continued. "There were a lot of nurses coming in and out. You were in the waiting room, devastated by the news that Isabel had had complications. That's when I heard the crying, 2 distinct cries." "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Alex's voice cracked. "Because I had no proof, senor, only suspicions. And when I tried to question it, I was threatened. They said I would lose my nursing license, that I would be deported. I had 3 children to raise on my own." Alex stood up, walking to the window. The sun was beginning to set, painting the city sky in shades of orange and purple. "But you came to work for me. Why?" "Because of Doña Isabel," Emma replied, her voice softening. "The last time I saw her conscious, she held my hand and said, 'Take care of them for me.' At the time, I thought she meant only Eric and you. But now..." A cheer from the playroom interrupted their conversation. Alex and Emma walked over to find Eric and Luca sitting on the floor, surrounded by puzzle pieces. "Look, Dad," Eric exclaimed, pointing to the partially completed puzzle. "Luca can put it together as fast as I can, and we picked the same pieces to start with." Alex watched the boys work in perfect sync, as if they had spent their entire lives together. His gaze then caught something glinting around Luca's neck, a small moon-shaped medallion. "Luca, that necklace. It was the only thing they left with me at the orphanage. the boy replied, holding the pendant fondly. Sister Teresa said I was wrapped in a blue blanket when they found me, with this and a note. Alex staggered, needing to hold onto the wall for support. Eric immediately ran to his dresser, pulling out an identical medallion but in the shape of a sun from a small music box. Mom gave me this before she left, Eric said, holding the two pendants close to each other. When placed side by side, they formed a perfect circle. Emma gasped. The medallions, Doña Isabel always wore them together. She said they represented balance day and night, two sides of the same coin. But how did she manage to... Alex began to ask, but his voice trailed off as he realized the implication. Isabel knew. Somehow she had discovered the truth and found a way to leave clues. Senor, Emma said softly, I think it's time we opened the chest. What chest? Alex asked, frowning. The chest that Doña Isabel asked me to guard. She said it should only be opened when the twin stars meet again. In the master closet, hidden behind a false wall that Emma revealed, was an antique wooden chest, carved with stars and moons. Alex felt his heart race as he recognized the object. It was the chest that Isabel always said held her greatest treasures. The children watched curiously as Alex, with trembling hands, inserted the old key he had always carried with him, not knowing its true purpose. The trunk opened with a soft click, revealing its contents: diaries, photographs, letters, and, on top of it all, an envelope sealed with red wax, addressed simply, "For when the truth comes to light." The envelope trembled in Alex's hands as everyone gathered in the mansion's library. The age-yellowed paper held Isabel's signature scent, a soft jasmine scent that still sent a sharp ache through his chest. Eric and Luca sat together on the large leather couch, their eyes fixed on the envelope as if they could see right through it. "Dear Alex," he began to read aloud, his voice breaking as he recognized his wife's elegant handwriting. "If you are reading this letter, it means that our children have finally found each other. Yes, children, in the plural. I know you must be confused, maybe even angry, but I ask that you read to the end. There is so much I need to tell you, so much that I discovered in the last weeks of my pregnancy." Alex had to pause, his hands shaking. Emma discreetly offered him a glass of water. "It all started when I found strange documents in Dr. Frisk's office," the letter continued. "I was there for a routine checkup when he was called in urgently. On his desk was a folder of birth records, numbers that didn't add up, babies that had simply disappeared from the official records. At first I thought it was just a clerical error, but then I began to notice patterns. Eric and Luca moved even closer to each other, as if instinctively seeking comfort. I discovered that I was not the first mother of twins to be cared for by him. Other women have reported similar experiences, sudden complications, unscheduled sedation, and the terrible news that only one baby had survived. But I knew, Alex. I knew that I carried two hearts inside me. I could feel them, so distinct and yet so connected." Alex closed his eyes for a moment, remembering how Isabel insisted she felt two babies moving in different ways, how she always bought everything in pairs, even when the doctors assured her it was just one baby. I tried to gather evidence to confront Dr. Frisk, but he was too powerful. He had connections everywhere. When he realized I knew too much, he began to subtly threaten me. Not me directly, but you, our family, our future. I realized I wouldn't be able to stop him before the birth. Emma let out a choked sob, her own memories of that night coming back full force. "So I did what I could to make sure that one day the truth would come out. The lockets were part of my plan. I managed to convince a nurse, you may remember her, Emma, to make sure that each baby got a piece of the set, sun and moon, always destined to meet again." The children simultaneously looked at their medallions, as if they had just gained new meaning. "There's more evidence at the bottom of this trunk. Documents, photographs, records that I've managed to copy. I don't know what will happen to me. I have a feeling Dr. Frisk won't let me leave the hospital alive if I try to expose his scheme, but I know that one day our boys will find each other." Alex had to stop again, his vision blurry with unshed tears. Emma placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. Eric and Luca, yes, I had already chosen their names, Eric like the angel of healing, and Luca like the shooting stars that have always fascinated me. I knew they would be separated, but I also knew that the love between twin brothers is stronger than any distance. The boys looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. Alex, my love, I know you will blame yourself for not realizing it sooner. Don't do that. The blame lies solely with those who turned the miracle of life into a cruel business. Use your influence, your power, to ensure that this does not happen to other families. At the bottom of the trunk is a diary with all the details I could gather. Names, dates, other possible cases. And there is also something special for our boys, an album I prepared during the pregnancy, with letters to each of them, telling about their first movements, their distinct personalities that I could already sense. The love I feel for the three of you transcends any distance or time. I know that one day our family will be complete again, even if I am not physically present to see it. With all my love, Isabel. A deep silence fell over the library. Alex carefully folded the letter, his hands still shaking slightly. At the bottom of the trunk, as promised, was a thick leather-bound diary and an album decorated with gold stars. Eric was the first to move, taking the album reverently. As he opened it, a photo fell out. Isabel, pregnant, smiling radiantly, as she held two tiny onesies, one blue and one green. I have a jumpsuit just like that, Luca exclaimed, his eyes wide. It's the only thing I have from the day I was dropped off at the orphanage. Alex picked up the diary, his mind already processing the information that could be there. Names, dates, other cases. How many families had been destroyed by Dr. Frisk's scheme? Dad? Eric's voice brought him back to the present. What do we do now? Alex looked at the two boys, his sons, and for the first time in 10 years, he felt absolute certainty about his next step. We will do what your mother asked, he replied with determination. We will find out the whole truth and make sure justice is served. Night was falling over the city as Emma prepared the guest room next to Eric's. Her expert hands changed the silk sheets while her mind wandered through memories from a decade ago. She discreetly observed the boys who had not left each other's side since reading the letter, as if trying to make up for 10 years of separation in a few hours. In his office, Alex flipped obsessively through Isabel's diary, each page revealing a web of conspiracies more complex than he had imagined. Her meticulous notes detailed other suspicious cases at the hospital, dates, nurses' names, even seemingly innocent conversations that now took on new meaning. Senor Alex, Emma called softly from the doorway, dinner is served. He looked up, noticing for the first time how many hours had passed. The boys? They're in Eric's room, Senor. Luca found the chessboard and, well, Senor needs to see this. Intrigued, Alex followed Emma to his son's room. He stopped at the door, astonished by the scene. The twins were playing chess in concentrated silence, moving their pieces with disturbing synchrony. They weren't talking. They were just playing, as if they could read each other's thoughts. They've been like this for an hour, Emma whispered. I've never seen anything like it. Checkmate, they both said in unison, and then they laughed, breaking the trance. How did you know I was going to move the horse? Eric asked in amazement. Luca shrugged. I don't know. I just knew, like in my dreams. What dreams? Alex entered the room, sitting on the edge of the bed. The boys looked at each other, that silent communication present again. For as long as I can remember, Luca began, I've dreamed of places I've never seen. Of a big house like this, with a garden full of red roses. Mommy's roses, Eric added, and I dream of a place full of children, with blue walls and... The orphanage, Luca whispered. You dreamed of the orphanage. Alex felt a shiver run down his spine. Isabel always talked about the special connection between twins, but seeing that bond manifested so clearly was surreal. There's more, Eric said, running to his bookshelf. He came back with a sketchbook. Look, Dad. The pages revealed drawings he had made over the years, a kiosk by a stream, a red swing, a long-haired woman telling stories, the same scenes Luca had described in his dreams. The clearing, Alex murmured. Your mother's special place. I never understood why I drew these things, Eric confessed. They just appeared in my head. Emma, who had been watching from the doorway, discreetly wiped away a tear. Doña Isabel took Eric there every week when he was a baby. It was the place where she... Where is she, Emma? Alex prompted. Where she said she could feel both of them. Even after they said only Eric had survived, she insisted on going there. She said she could feel the other baby too. Luca hugged his knees, his eyes brimming with tears. Sometimes when I was really sad at the orphanage, I felt like someone was hugging me. It was a sweet scent, like... Jasmine, Eric added. Mommy's scent. Alex stood abruptly, walking to the window. The full moon illuminated the garden, Isabel's roses swaying gently in the night breeze. How many signs had he ignored over the years? How many times had Eric mentioned strange dreams that he had dismissed as mere childish imagination? Dad? Eric's voice brought him back. Luca can stay with us, can't he? Forever. Alex looked at the two boys, so alike and yet unique. Luca, with his simple clothes and cautious gaze, carried the same natural nobility as Eric. It was undeniable. They were Isabel's children, they were his children. Yes, son, Luca will stay, but first we need to do everything legally. Tomorrow morning I'll call Dr. Muller, our lawyer. We need to figure out how... No! Emma exclaimed, suddenly making everyone turn to her. Excuse me, senor, but Dr. Muller, in Doña Isabel's diary, she mentions him. Something about forged documents. Alex felt his blood run cold. Of course. How could the hospital pull off a scheme of that magnitude without legal help? How many people were involved? Senor, Emma continued, her voice shaking slightly, I think I know who can help us. Do you remember the nurse Doña Isabel mentions in the letter, the one who helped with the medallions? Yes? She still works at the hospital. Lena Leroy. She always wanted to speak out but was afraid. Now with Luca found... Alex nodded, a plan beginning to form in his mind. Tomorrow, Emma. Tomorrow we'll start to unravel all of this. The boys returned to their focus on the chessboard, starting a new game as if nothing in the world mattered beyond that moment. Alex watched them, thinking about how life had mysterious ways of righting its wrongs. 10 years of separation, pain and secrets, but there they were, his children, playing chess in perfect synchrony, as if they had never been separated. In the garden, Isabel's roses continued to dance in the moonlight, silent witnesses to a truth that was finally beginning to come to light. The next morning dawned gray over the city, as if the sky itself reflected the gravity of the mission ahead. Alex had spent the night awake, studying every detail of Isabel's diary, connecting dots that had previously seemed disconnected. Emma prepared a special breakfast, filling the table with every possible option without knowing Luca's preferences. To her surprise and shock, the twins chose exactly the same foods in the same order. First the fruit, then the scrambled eggs, and lastly, a slice of bread with strawberry jam. Senor Alex, Emma called softly as the boys ate. I got Lena's contact information. She still works at St. Luke's Hospital, but now in the administrative department. Alex nodded, checking his Rolex. I'll head over there now. The fewer people who know about our investigation, the better. And the boys? Stay with them. Don't let anyone in or out of the property until I get back. I don't trust anyone right now. Hospital São Lucas was still as imposing as Alex remembered, its white walls holding secrets that were now beginning to emerge. At the reception, a young attendant smiled automatically when she recognized him. Mr. Godot, what a surprise. How can I help you? I need to speak to Lena Leroy. The change in the receptionist's expression was subtle but noticeable. One moment. Please. Minutes later, a middle-aged woman with gray hair tied in a severe bun approached cautiously. Her eyes widened as she recognized Alex. Mr. Godot, she whispered, looking around nervously. Not here. Meet me at the cafe on the corner in 15 minutes. At the cafe, Lena chose a table in the back, away from the windows. Her hands shook slightly as she held the cup. So it finally happened, she said, without preamble. The twins have met. Alex leaned forward. You knew all along. I knew. And I've carried that burden for 10 years. She took a deep breath. Isabel, she found out about it a few weeks before the birth. She came to me because I'd helped deliver twins. Before, she knew I was suspicious of the scheme. Why didn't you ever say anything? Lena laughed bitterly. Dr. Frisk had a file on every employee. He knew exactly how to keep us quiet. In my case, it was my son with leukemia. His treatment magically became a courtesy of the hospital. Alex felt his stomach churn. How many cases like ours are there? Dozens, maybe hundreds. Lena opened her purse, pulling out a flash drive. Isabel wasn't the only one keeping evidence. For the past 10 years, I've been discreetly copying every record I can find. Deleted files, doctored records, suspicious payments. Why are you handing this to me now? Because my son has been cured for 2 years. Because I can't bear to carry this secret any longer. And most of all, she hesitated, because I promised Isabel that when the time came, I would help. Alex took the flash drive, putting it away carefully. I need to know exactly what happened that night. Lena closed her eyes, as if reliving the memory. Isabel went into labor normally. Everything was going well until Dr. Frisk showed up. He had a special buyer for one of the babies, someone powerful with political connections. When Isabel started asking awkward questions during the prenatal, he decided it was safer to sedate her. What about me? Why didn't they tell me? You were devastated by the news of the complications. You signed any paper they put in front of you. It was all perfectly orchestrated. Lena hesitated. But Isabel, she woke up for a moment. Between doses of sedation, she managed to hand me the medallions, made me promise to make sure each baby got one. Alex felt his hands tremble. And then, Lena swallowed. Then she had a reaction to the anesthesia, or at least that's what the official records say. A heavy silence fell over the table. Alex struggled to control his emotions, decades of business training being tested to the max. There's one more thing, Lena continued, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Frisk doesn't act alone. There's a whole network going on. Doctors, lawyers, government officials. The scheme is much bigger than we imagined. Dr. Muller, Alex murmured. My own lawyer? Lena nodded. He takes care of the legal side. Fake death certificates, backdated adoption documents, all perfectly legal on the surface. Alex stood up abruptly. I have to go, but first I need to know why the orphanage. Why didn't they just hand Luca over to the buyers? Because Isabel was too smart. She spread clues, left records. The buyer got nervous, backed out of the deal. So they followed the standard protocol for these cases. A Catholic orphanage, far enough away not to arouse suspicion, but close enough to maintain control of the situation. As he left the cafe, Alex felt the weight of the flash drive in his pocket as if he were carrying a time bomb. 10 years of secrets, lies, and destroyed lives, all condensed into a few gigabytes of data. His phone vibrated, a message from Emma. Senor, the boys are restless. They say they dreamed of the same place last night. The clearing, the kiosk, and Doña Isabel was there, smiling. Alex looked up at the grey city sky. Somewhere Isabel was smiling. Her treasures were finally coming home. The tension was palpable in the Godot mansion when Alex returned. He found Emma in the kitchen, preparing hot chocolate, Eric's favorite. And apparently Luca's too, as they were discovering with each new coincidence. Where are the boys? He asked, loosening his tie. In the library, sir. They found Doña Isabel's old albums. Alex walked over, pausing at the door as he took in the scene. The twins sitting on the Persian rug, surrounded by old photographs. Luca held one particular photo with particular interest, a pregnant Isabel beaming in front of the kiosk in the clearing. This is it, Luca said, not taking his eyes off the photograph. It's exactly like in my dreams. Eric nodded emphatically. Daddy, can we go there, please? Alex hesitated. The clearing was on a small farm on the outskirts of town, a place he hadn't visited since Isabel. But something in the boy's eyes made him relent. Tomorrow, he promised, We need to settle a few things first today. He sat down with them, taking the flash drive Lena had handed him. I need to check some information. Why don't you go with Emma for a snack? Once the boys had left, Alex plugged the flash drive into his laptop. What he found made his blood run cold. Detailed payroll spreadsheets, doctored birth records, a long list of families affected by the scheme. Some entries were particularly disturbing. Godot case, top priority. Important political buyer. Complicated. Situation due to mother. Special procedure required. His phone rang, interrupting his reading. It was an unknown number. Mr. Godot. A deep, familiar voice sounded on the other end. This is Dr. Frisk. I think we need to talk. Alex felt his body tense. We really do. Not by phone. Meet me at the office in an hour. Come alone. The line went dead. Alex looked at his laptop screen, at the files exposing decades of crimes, and then at the photo of Isabel on his desk. He made his decision. Emma, she called, stay with the boys. Don't open the door to anyone. If I'm not back in 2 hours, give a copy of these files to journalist Anna Vasco. Dr. Frisk's private office was in a luxurious building. The doctor, now with completely white hair, waited seated behind his mahogany desk. Alex, he smiled, indicating the chair across from him. A long time no see. I didn't come to reminisce, Frisk. The doctor's smile didn't waver. Straight to the point then, I know you found the other boy. I also know you've been talking to Lena. Please, Alex, do you think we can keep up? A scheme this big for decades without having eyes everywhere. He leaned forward. I came to offer you a deal. There is no possible agreement. There's always a compromise. Think about it. You already have Eric. Now you've found Luca. You can keep them both, give them a comfortable life. Why stir up the past? Why expose everyone to scandal? Alex felt his jaw tighten. Because there are other families, other Erics, and Lucas's torn apart by their greed. Frisk laughed softly. Greed? No, my dear, we provide a service. Rich families who cannot have children, children who would have a life of poverty. We simply redistribute the cards that fate has dealt. You separated my children. Your wife left us no choice. The doctor's voice hardened. She was poking around where she shouldn't be, asking inappropriate questions. The original plan was to deliver only one of the twins, but she complicated everything with her investigations. Alex stood up abruptly, his hands shaking with anger. You killed her. Technically, it was a reaction to the anesthesia. These things happen. Frisk kept her tone clinical. But enough about the past. Let's talk about the future. What do you want to keep this story buried for? I want justice. Justice? Frisk laughed again. You don't get it, do you? This goes way beyond me. Politicians, judges, businessmen, people who can make your life and your children's lives very difficult. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you, as your family doctor. Some wounds are better left untouched. Alex walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Somewhere other families were going through the same drama as his. Other Isabels were trying to find out the truth. You have 24 hours, Frisk said. After that, I won't be able to guarantee anyone's safety. Alex turned to face him. Do you know what Isabel's last request was? That I protect our treasures. For 10 years I have failed half of that promise. I will not fail again. As he left the office, Alex made 2 calls, the first to his bank in Switzerland, the second to Anna Vasco, the most respected investigative journalist in the country. It was time to fulfill the promise made to Isabel. Dawn found the Godot family already on their way to their old farm on the outskirts of town. Alex drove in silence, occasionally glancing in the rearview mirror at the sleeping twins in the back seat. Eric and Luca were holding hands, as if even in sleep they didn't want to be separated. Emma, sitting next to Alex, clutched tightly. A folder containing all the documents and evidence they had gathered. Signor, she murmured, are you sure it's safe to take the boys? Alex nodded. They need it. We all need it. The winding road led to a long-abandoned property. The rusty gate creaked open, revealing a path overgrown with weeds. After a few minutes of following a barely visible path, they came to a small clearing. There, as if no time had passed, stood the kiosk, faded, with a few loose boards, but unmistakable. The roses that Isabel loved so much had spread, creating a natural red carpet around the structure. The twins woke up almost simultaneously as the car stopped. Their eyes widened as they recognized the scene from their shared dreams. "It's here," Luca whispered, his voice cracking. Eric was the first to get out of the car, running towards the kiosk. Luca followed closely behind, both of them exploring every inch of the place, as if they were looking for something specific. Alex and Emma watched them from afar, giving them space for this moment. "Dad," Eric suddenly shouted, "there's something here!" Approaching, Alex saw that the boys had found a small metal box buried partially beneath the floor of the kiosk. Carefully, he dug it out completely. The box was locked with a small padlock. Alex hesitated, looking at the medallions the twins wore. "Boys, can I see your medallions for a moment?" When they were put together, they formed a perfect key for the padlock. With a click, the box opened. Inside was another diary, some photos, and a letter addressed to "My dear Alex, Eric, and Luca." With shaking hands, Alex began to read aloud. "My loves, if you're reading this, it means you're finally together. My heart breaks when I think about the years you've spent apart, but I know the love that unites you is stronger than any distance. Alex, my dear, don't blame yourself. I know you must have spent years wondering how you didn't notice. The truth is, I was the one who chose to protect you by keeping you in the dark. Dr. Frisk and his associates are dangerous, and I feared for your life and the lives of our children. Eric and Luca, my little miracles. From the first moment I felt you moving inside me, I knew you were special. Two hearts beating as one, two souls destined to change the world together. This journal, I have recorded every detail I have learned about the hospital scheme. Names, dates, connections. I know it is dangerous, but I also know that the truth needs to come out. Other families deserve justice. There's one last thing you need to know. On the night of the birth, when I realized what was about to happen, I made a choice. I knew I couldn't save both babies from Frisk's scheme, so I chose which one I would keep for Alex. It was the hardest decision of my life. I knew that one of you would have a comfortable life, while the other would face challenges. But I also knew that destiny would find a way to bring you together. Luca, my brave one, forgive me for these years away from my family. Every day away from you was torture. Eric, my sweet one, thank you for never stopping feeling your brother's presence, even without knowing it. Alex, I trust you to do what is right. Use this information wisely. Protect our boys, but don't let fear stop them from seeking justice. Always remember, the love that unites us is stronger than any distance, more powerful than any secret. With all my love, forever. Isabel. By the time Alex finished reading, there wasn't a dry eye in the clearing. The twins were hugging each other, their tears mingling with the rose petals surrounding them. Emma was sobbing silently, while Alex held the letter to his chest, feeling as if Isabel was there, hugging them all. At that moment, under the morning sun that filtered through the trees, a decision was made. Not with words, but with determined. Looks and hearts united by a purpose. The truth would come out, for Isabel, for the twins, and for all the other families who didn't yet know they were incomplete. The days that followed the discovery in the clearing were a whirlwind of emotion and action. The Godot mansion, once a monument to silence and suppressed grief, now pulsed with renewed energy. Alex had transformed the library into a hub of operations, whiteboards covering the walls, filled with names, dates, and connections. Eric and Luca, inseparable, spent hours poring over Isabel's diaries, deciphering every entry, every clue left by their mother. Their connection, already naturally strong, seemed to have intensified after their visit to the clearing. Often, one would complete the other's sentence or reach the same conclusion simultaneously, to the amazement and admiration of everyone around them. Emma, meanwhile, had become the crucial link to the outside world. Her experience as a nurse and her contacts at the hospital were invaluable. Every day she brought in new information, the names of other possible victims of the scheme. One particularly tense afternoon, Alex received a call from Anna Vasco, the investigative journalist. "Mr. Godot," his voice sounded urgent, "we need to meet. I have information that will shake the foundations of this case." The meeting was scheduled for that same evening, at a discreet cafe in the city center. Alex arrived first, choosing a table in the back, away from prying ears. Anna appeared a few minutes later, carrying a thick folder. Her eyes, usually bright and determined, looked tired, as if they were carrying the weight of too many secrets. "What did you find out?" Alex asked as soon as she sat down. "It's worse than we imagined," she began, opening the folder. "The scheme is not limited to Hospital San Lucas. There are at least 5 other institutions involved, spread across the country." Alex felt his stomach sink. "How long? How many families?" "At least 3 decades, and we're talking hundreds, possibly thousands of cases." Anna paused, hesitant. "But there's more. Dr. Frisk. He's just the tip of the iceberg." She slid a photo across the table. In it, a group of men in expensive suits stood smiling in front of a newly opened hospital. Alex immediately recognized the younger Dr. Frisk standing next to... "It can't be," he muttered. "The then state governor," Anna confirmed. "Hand that one over there. The man with the glasses, he's the current Minister of Health." Alex felt his world spin. The conspiracy went far beyond what he could have imagined. It reached the highest echelons of power. "There's more," Anna continued, her voice low. "I found records of suspicious bank transfers, large amounts going to offshore accounts. One of them, Alex, one of them is in your company's name." The shock was like a punch in the stomach. "Impossible, I would never—" "Not you," she interrupted him gently. "The digital signature on the documents is Dr. Muller's." The family lawyer, the man Alex had trusted for decades. Suddenly, so many things began to make sense. The contracts he had never read through, taking Muller's word for it. The donations to charities he barely knew about. "They used my company as a front," Alex realized, anger rising in his voice. Anna nodded. "And not just yours. Several prestigious companies are involved, many probably without the owner's knowledge. What do we do now?" The journalist stared at him, her eyes regaining some of their determined shine. "We'll expose everything, but we have to be careful. These people have the power to destroy lives with a phone call." Alex thought about the twins, about Emma, about all the other families who didn't even know they were victims. "We can't wait. Every day that passes is another child growing up away from their real family." "I agree," Anna said, "but we need a plan. A strategy that leaves no room for them to escape or get revenge." As they discussed their next steps, Alex's phone vibrated. It was a message from Emma. "Senor, come home immediately. The boys, they found something in the diaries, something about the night Doña Isabel. You need to see this." Alex felt a shiver run down his spine. After so many years, were they finally close to discovering the whole truth about that fateful night? "I have to go," he told Anna. Standing up, "Keep investigating, keep everything safe, and Anna, be careful. These people will not hesitate to silence anyone who gets in their way." As he left the cafe, Alex didn't notice the man in the dark suit watching him from a car parked across the street. Nor did he see the man pick up the phone and dial a number. "Dr. Frisk? They know. They know everything. What do we do now?" The response on the other end of the line was short and cold. "Activate emergency protocol. It's time to clean house." The city at night has never looked so dark and menacing. Alex drove through the city streets with his heart racing, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts and worries. The city lights blurred past, reflecting the urgency he felt. What had the twins discovered? And more importantly, were they all safe? When he reached the mansion, he found Emma at the door, her face a mixture of anxiety and excitement. "Hurry. Senor, they're in the library." Eric and Luca were hunched over the central table, surrounded by papers, photos, and Isabel's diaries. Their eyes shone with an intensity Alex had never seen before. "Dad," Eric began, his voice shaking slightly, "we found out what really happened that night." Luca continued, as if the two were of one mind. "Mom left clues in the diaries, not just about the scheme, but about what she planned to do." Alex sat down, feeling the weight of the revelations to come. "Tell me everything." The twins looked at each other, and then Eric began. Mom knew she was pregnant with twins from the beginning, but she also found out about Dr. Frisk's scheme. She investigated for months, gathering evidence, but she knew it was too dangerous to confront them directly. Luca picked up one of the journals, opening it to a marked page. "Here, look." She wrote, "I can't save everyone, but I will save my children, no matter the cost." Eric continued. On the night of the birth, she put her plan into action. She had an ally at the hospital, a nurse named Clara. Alex frowned, vaguely remembering a kind-eyed nurse who had been present during the birth. "Clara helped Mom pretend there were complications," Luca explained. "They thought Mom was sedated, but in fact she was conscious the whole time." Eric picked up another journal. "When they took one of us, Luca, Mom knew she couldn't stop it, but she had a plan B. The orphanage," Alex murmured, the pieces falling into place. "Exactly," Luca nodded. "Mom had contacted Sister Teresa weeks ago. She knew that if she couldn't keep both babies, she would at least make sure one of us was in a safe place, away from Dr. Frisk's clutches." Eric, with tears in his eyes, continued, "But the effort was too much for her. The adrenaline, the stress, her heart couldn't take it." Alex felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "So, it wasn't a reaction to the anesthesia?" Emma, who had listened to everything in silence, sobbed softly. "Doña Isabel. She sacrificed herself to save them both." Luca took his brother's hand, both of them with tears in their eyes. "She loved us so much that she gave her life to protect us." Alex stood, walking to the window. The full moon illuminated the garden, Isabel's roses swaying gently in the night breeze. He could almost feel her presence there, watching, protecting. "There's one more thing," Eric said, his voice low. "Mom left a list. Names, dates, other possible cases of separated twins." Luca handed Alex a piece of paper. "There are dozens of families, Dad. Dozens of siblings who may be separated without knowing it." Alex looked at the list, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. It wasn't just about his family anymore. It was about all the families that had been torn apart by greed and corruption. At that moment, Alex's phone rang. It was Anna. "Alex," his voice sounded urgent, "we need to act now. I just got a tip from a contact at the hospital. They're destroying evidence, erasing records. If we don't do something immediately, we'll lose everything." Alex looked at the twins, at Emma, and then at the picture of Isabel on the table. He made his decision. "Anna, gather the whole team. It's time to lay it all out." Little did Alex know that while they were planning their next move, dark forces were already at work. Across town in his plush office, Dr. Frisk was making a series of frantic phone calls. "Cancel all operations," he ordered, sweat pouring down his forehead. "Transfer the funds. And as for Godot, he knows too much. Take care of him." The night that had begun with revelations was about to turn into a race against time, a battle between truth and lies, between justice and corruption. And at the center of it all, two brothers united by destiny and the love of a mother who gave everything to protect them. Dawn was falling over the city when the Godot mansion became a whirlwind of activity. Alex, determination written all over his face, was coordinating an operation that looked like something out of a spy movie. "Emma," he called, "pack the boys' bags, basic clothes, essential documents. We need to be ready to leave at a moment's notice." The governess nodded, hurrying to carry out the order, while the twins watched everything with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "What about us, Dad?" Eric asked. "What can we do?" Alex knelt before them, placing a hand on each of their shoulders. "You've already done more than you know. Now, I need you to stay together and do exactly what I say, okay?" Luca, ever the perceptive one, frowned. "We're in danger, aren't we?" "We're in a delicate situation," Alex replied carefully, "but I promise I'll protect you no matter what the cost." At that moment, the phone rang. It was Anna again. "Alex, we have a problem." His voice was strained. "My contact at the hospital, he's gone missing, and there are rumors that they're preparing a large-scale cleansing operation. How much time do we have?" "Hours, perhaps. We need to act now." Alex took a deep breath, his mind racing. "Okay, meet me at the newspaper office in an hour. We'll release everything we have." Hanging up the phone, he turned to Emma. "Call the pilot. I want the jet ready for takeoff in 2 hours." "Where are we going, senor?" "It's better if you don't know for now. Just make sure you're ready." While Emma left to make preparations, Alex locked himself in his office. He opened the safe behind Isabel's painting and took out a thick folder full of documents. It was his insurance, compromising. Information on various tycoons and politicians, collected over the years as a precaution. He had never imagined he would need to use it. But now it was a matter of survival. Outside the mansion, a black car parked discreetly. 2 men in suits watched the movement, speaking quietly into their communicators. "The target is agitated. It looks like they are preparing to leave." The voice that answered was cold and calculating. "Dr. Frisk. We can't let them escape. The plan continues. As soon as they leave the mansion, intercept them." Back inside the house, the twins were in Eric's room trying to process everything that was happening. "Luca," Eric whispered, "do you think we'll be okay?" Luca took his brother's hand, feeling the connection that had united them since before birth. "Come on, Mommy is protecting us, remember? And now we have Daddy too." A sudden noise in the hallway made them jump. Emma had knocked over a tray, teacups spilling across the floor. "Sorry, boys," she said, but something in her voice sounded strange. Her eyes were wide and her hands were shaking slightly. Eric and Luca exchanged glances. Something was wrong. At the office, Alex was finalizing the preparations. All important documents had been scanned and uploaded to secure servers. Hard copies were with Anna and other trusted contacts. Now it was a race against time. Your phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. "I know what you're planning. Don't do this, think about the boys." Alex felt a shiver run down his spine. How did they know? How deep was this conspiracy? At that moment, the lights in the mansion flickered and went out. Darkness engulfed everything for a few seconds before the emergency generators kicked in. "Dad!" Eric's voice echoed through the hallway. Alex ran, his heart pounding in his chest. When he reached the boys' room, he found them hugging each other, staring scared at the window. "There's someone out there," Luca whispered. Alex approached the window carefully. In the garden, shadows moved between the trees. They weren't security guards. He knew his team's routine well. "Emma!" he called, but there was no answer. The storm gathering on the horizon wasn't just metaphorical. Dark clouds gathered over the city, occasional lightning lighting up the night sky. Alex knew they only had minutes before everything fell apart. With a quick decision, he took the boys by the hand. "Come on, now." As they ran through the halls of the mansion, Alex couldn't help but think of Isabel. She had sacrificed everything to protect her children. Now, it was his turn to do the same. The rain was starting to fall as they pulled into the back garage. Alex quickly got them into the car, taking one last look at the mansion that had been his home for so many years. "Where are we going, Dad?" Eric asked, his voice shaking slightly. Alex started the engine, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "For truth and for justice." As the car sped through the stormy night, Alex knew nothing would ever be the same again, but with his children by his side and Isabel's memory guiding them, he was ready to face whatever challenge lay ahead. The final battle was just beginning. The rain fell in thick sheets over the city, turning the streets into shimmering rivers in the streetlights. Alex drove with determination, his eyes flickering between the road ahead and the rearview mirror, always alert for any sign of pursuit. In the back seat, Eric and Luca were unnaturally silent, their hands clasped together as if they were drawing strength from each other. Every now and then they exchanged meaningful glances, communicating without words in a way that only twins can. "Dad," Luca broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. What about Emma? Alex felt a tightness in his chest. In his haste to escape, he hadn't had time to look for the housekeeper. She'll be fine. Emma's smart. She'll know what to do. But even as he said it, a part of him worried. Emma knew too much. What if Frisk's men had found her? Alex's phone vibrated. On the console, it was Anna. Where are you? She asked, her voice strained. I'm at the newspaper, but it's chaos in here. Someone leaked that we had a big story about to break. There are reporters from other outlets surrounding the building. Alex swore under his breath. Change of plans. It's not safe for us to go there right now. I'll text you an address. Meet me there in an hour. Turning off, he made a sharp turn, changing direction. Where are we going? Eric asked, leaning forward. To a safe place, Alex replied, his eyes focused on the E. It was a place your mother prepared a long time ago. The twins exchanged surprised looks. Another one of Isabel's secrets coming to light. After almost an hour of traveling, leaving the city behind, Alex turned onto a nearly invisible dirt road hidden among dense trees. The path led to a small country house, isolated and well camouflaged by the vegetation. What is this place? Luca asked, his eyes wide as they got out of the car. Alex took a deep breath, memories flooding his mind. This was your mother's secret hideaway. She bought this property under an assumed name just before that night in the hospital. Inside the house, although dusty with age, everything was meticulously organized. On the walls, photos of a pregnant Isabel, smiling radiantly. On a table, scrapbooks, notes, and what appeared to be a detailed map of connections, very similar to the one Alex had put together in the mansion's library. She knew, Alex murmured, running his fingers over Isabel's notes. She was always one step ahead. Eric opened one of the albums, his eyes filling with tears as he saw ultrasound photos. Look, Luca, that's us. Luca stepped closer, his hand gently touching the image. Together since the beginning. Alex watched the boys, his heart filling with a mixture of love and determination. That was when he noticed something strange on one of the walls, a slight unevenness, almost imperceptible. Stepping closer, he pressed lightly on the area. With a soft click, a secret compartment opened, revealing a thick folder and a USB flash drive. What's this, Dad? Eric asked, approaching curiously. Alex opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were documents, compromising photos, bank records. It was a ticking time bomb of information. It's your mother's ultimate weapon, he replied, his voice cracking. Everything we need to take down Frisk and her entire network. At that moment, headlights illuminated the front window. A car was approaching. Alex quickly put the documents away. Stay here, he instructed the boys, cautiously heading for the... To his relief, it was Anna who got out of the car, but her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. Alex, she gasped, we have a big problem. Dr. Frisk. He's dead. The shock of the news hit Alex like a bolt of lightning. What do you mean, dead? Found in his office, apparently a heart attack, but... She hesitated. There are rumors it was murder, and they're trying to pin it on you. Alex felt the world spin. With Frisk dead, who was really behind all of this? And how far would they go to silence them? Inside the house, the twins listened to the conversation, their hearts racing. Eric held Luca's hand tightly. It's going to be okay, Luca whispered, though his voice shook slightly. We're together now. Nothing can tear us apart. As the storm raged outside, inside that small cottage, the fate of many lives was about to be decided. Alex knew that the next few hours would be crucial. With the evidence Isabel had left behind, they had the power to expose the whole truth. But with unseen enemies lurking in the shadows, willing to do anything to keep their secrets, the battle was far from over. The real storm was just beginning. The dawn was breaking, bringing with it a light, persistent rain. Inside the country house, the air was thick with tension and anticipation. Alex, Anna, and the twins were gathered around the kitchen table, surrounded by documents, photos, and laptops. With Frisk's death, everything changed, Anna explained, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she organized the information. Whoever is at the top of this food chain is desperate. They're trying to cover their tracks, silence witnesses. Alex nodded gravely. That's why we need to act now. We can't give them time to reorganize. Eric and Luca watched everything with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. Despite the gravity of the situation, there was something thrilling about being at the center of such an important investigation. "Dad," Luca called softly, "we found something in Mom's journals that might help." He held out an open notebook, pointing to a specific page. Alex read aloud. "The weakest link is not Frisk, but Judge Leone. He is the one responsible for legalizing the fraudulent adoptions. Without him, the whole scheme falls apart." Anna looked up, a spark of recognition in her gaze. "Judge Victor Leone, he's about to retire. In fact, there's a big ceremony in his honor tomorrow night." A plan began to form in Alex's mind. This is our chance. If we can get everything out there during the ceremony with the press present, it would be a devastating blow, Anna added. "But how are we going to get in? The event is exclusive to high society and judicial figures." It was then that Eric, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "What if we used his father's company? He would certainly be invited to an event like that." Alex looked at his son with a mixture of pride and surprise. "Brilliant, Eric. I still have my contacts. I can get you invitations." The next few hours were spent in intense preparation. Anna worked furiously, compiling all the evidence into an irrefutable dossier. Alex made phone calls, ensuring her presence at the event and, more importantly, ensuring that journalists he trusted would be there too. Meanwhile, the twins continued to sift through the diaries and documents left behind by Isabel, looking for any additional information that might be useful. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, a sense of determination settled over the group. They knew the next 24 hours would be decisive. "Boys," Alex called, his voice soft but firm, "I need you to understand something. What we're about to do is dangerous. There are powerful people who will do anything to stop us." Eric and Luca exchanged glances, that silent communication flowing between them. It was Luca who answered. "We understand, Dad. Mom gave her life to protect us and to expose the truth. We can't let it be in vain." Alex felt his heart clench with pride and worry. His children, so young but already showing courage and maturity beyond their years. "Okay," he said, taking a deep breath. "Here's the plan." The hours passed quickly. Alex and Anna refined every detail of their strategy, while the twins, exhausted but determined, finally succumbed to sleep, curled up together on the living room couch. When night finally fell, the cottage was silent. Alex stared out the window, his reflection blending into the shadows outside. Within hours, they would be in the eye of a storm that would shake the foundations of society. His phone vibrated, a message from Emma. "I'm fine. I managed to escape. I have more information. I'll see you at the event." A sigh of relief escaped his lips. Another ally in the battle that was to come. Alex turned his gaze to the sleeping twins. For a moment, he saw not just his children, but all the other children who had been separated, all the families destroyed by greed and corruption. "It's time," he muttered to himself. Gently, he woke Eric and Luca. The boys opened their eyes, immediately alert, as if they sensed the importance of the moment. "Come on, boys," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion and determination. "Let's make Mommy proud." As they prepared to leave, the first ray of sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the house. It was as if the universe itself was giving its sign of approval. The truth, so long buried, was about to come to light, and nothing would be the same again.